All right, take two. This is House Cat MMA, and right now I'm going to be riffing about the potential matchup between Johnny Walker and Dominick Reyes. But before I get into all that, if you just take a second to like and subscribe, maybe do a little bit of commenting and sharing, that shit would be cool as fuck. So, the potential matchup between Johnny Walker and Dominick Reyes that might take place on April 11th of 2026 at UFC 327, that matchup gets my dick hard. It's some of the most exciting fights happen between two guys who are kind of known to stand and bang, and they also have suspect chins. You know, kind of like Travis Brown versus Andrei Arlovski. They just took turns dropping each other until Andrei Arlovski eventually rendered Travis Brown unconscious. I think that's what's going to happen here. Dominick Reyes was a pretty interesting case coming into the UFC. You know, kind of strutted in there, got some wins, damn near killed Chris Weidman, and gets a title shot against John Jones in a fight that he arguably won, even though Jones got the decision. I've watched that fight probably 6 times, and honestly, I can't call it. I see what I see what the judges were talking about giving to Jones, but also I would have saw what they were talking about giving it to Reyes. It was kind of a weird fight to judge. And then, you know, in sport, we all guys have days where their shit is just working. And that's the kind of day that Dominick Reyes was having against John Jones. It just wasn't quite enough because John Jones is the pound for pound GOAT. So, but then he, has some rough knockout losses to Jan Blachowicz, Yuri Prohaska, and most recently to Carlos Ulberg. But when he lost those 4 straight, so he lost to Jones by decision, then he rattled off 3 straight losses by knockout. Ryan Spann was another guy that he got knocked out by. But he then got his shit together a little bit and rattled off 3 knockout wins of his own. And then he drew Carlos Ulberg, and Carlos Ulberg slept him pretty proper. And so but that does not mean that he's not still on a stride. It just means that Carlos Ulberg is a bad motherfucker. And with Johnny Walker, much of the same. Johnny Walker never fought for a title or nothing like that, but he waltzed into the UFC and was doing some pretty cool shit until he lost to Corey Anderson. And then he had some other rough knockout losses, to your Jamal Hills, your Magomed Ankalaevs. He dropped a decision to Thiago Santos. But he does well. He's coming off a pretty good win against that Zhang cat, that newer Asian, younger light heavyweight who's pretty good. So I think this is going to be a pretty exciting fight, so long as none of them go in there and decide to they're gonna fight smart. As long as Reyes doesn't go in there and fight like Clay Guida when he fought Gray Maynard. If that doesn't happen, it'll be a pretty cool fight. I'm not worried about that happening with Johnny Walker, because Johnny Walker, he doesn't really fight smart, period. And that's the thing. I like Johnny Walker because he knows his place. And his place isn't being a tactical fighter. His place is being a semi-goofy looking, whilst also being pretty handsome, 6'6" light heavyweight, probably walks around at 242 pounds, and he just has goofy mannerisms, has a Jim Carrey-esque ability to make his face do all kinds of weird shit, and he just goes in there and he throws caution to the wind, and he most of the time fucks guys up. And Dominick Reyes is a much more reserved guy who he wants nothing more than to win the title. And I don't think Johnny Walker really cares too much about the title. He just wants to fight. I wouldn't be surprised if Reyes goes for I wouldn't be surprised if either guy goes for a takedown at some point. I think they will do a little bit of scrambling. But as far as who I think is going to win that fight, that's a pretty tough one. But Who's got the better chin? Neither one of them got great ones. Who's got the better chin? That's the $1 million question. God, they both kind of have equally shitty chins, but I'm gonna say Johnny Walker has a slightly better chin. Not by much, though. That doesn't mean too much. It means a little bit, though. I think Dominick Reyes is still on a roll. I think Ulberg's that bad of a motherfucker. He's not a top echelon guy. He kind of was at one point when he had the fight against John Jones, but that was a once in a lifetime performance for him. I don't think that's the level that he's at all times. So I am gonna go Dominick Reyes by some form of knockout in late in the first round. I think they might take turns dropping each other. I think they're both gonna have very bright moments. I think that Joe Rogan's gonna do a little bit of hooting and hollering in there. But this is House Cat MMA, and I'll catch y'all later.